Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Builder Partnerships Webinar Wednesday. Our webinar today is Financial Forum, Indicators and Trends Impacting the Home Building Industry. Specifically today, we're going to be talking about the struggle through society and economy, presented by Jim Weigel. You could switch the slide for me, Jim. I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items real quick. Today we are recording the webinar, so if you'd like to revisit, you're welcome to revisit it by logging into our website at builderpartnerships.com and clicking on the events page and selecting the webinar that you'd like to rewatch. We are accepting questions throughout the entire webinar. We will likely reserve most questions until the end. The way you ask your question is by clicking on that Q&A speech bubble that's down on the bottom, and as the questions come across, I can review those and read them out loud so Jim can answer those at the end. If you have any feedback or have any direct questions, you can also use the chat function to communicate directly with me or the panelists. You can go ahead and click to the next page. Today, our webinar is sponsored by Guild Quality, and we'd like to thank them very much for participating. They're a great partner for us at Builder Partnerships. Guild Quality is the leading industry leader when it comes to following up with clients after a job is done, in order to gather authentic feedback and verified reviews about operational performance. All of the feedback they collect is presented back to you in such a way that makes it easy for you to quickly see where you're excelling and where you have opportunities for improvement. The graphic on the screen illustrates what their survey process is like, and as you can see, most of the heavy lifting is on their end. In fact, all you have to do is get them your customer and project data, and they will take it from there. Once they've received that information, which by the way can be uploaded automatically using tools like MarketSharp or the custom API they've built, their team of dedicated surveyors contact your customers via phone, email, and even mail, and surveys them about their experience with your company. Today, Guild Quality yields between 65 to 75% response rate, and their survey questions are completely customizable. They also send you responses in real time, which means you'll always have an accurate picture of the quality of your service. Get started today with a free trial of their service at guildquality.com/start. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jim. He is one of our senior consultants at Builder Partnerships and specializes in management, marketing, operations, finance, quality, valuation, effective ownership, leader transition, and performance excellence. So I'll hand it over to Jim to go ahead and get started. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks a lot, Emma Jane, and welcome to all. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at. We're going to talk about, again, general themes of our financial forum. One that seems to be popping up pretty regularly is whatever opportunity or problem or trend that existed before the COVID stuff started happening seems to be magnified during this crisis, and it's probably going to be accelerated thereafter. So far, we haven't seen any new trends developed that weren't already in place. So I'll be curious to see what your opinions are on that. We're going to be talking more about potential returns and risks, mainly for our businesses, but somewhat in our personal lives. And today we're going to be focusing more on some strategies for moderating those risks or enhancing those returns, in particular about how to create more excellence and less frustration by creating some strategic systems that help you run your business better. Always remember, if you've got some topics or issues that are important to you, whether it's financially, socially, economically, politically, please let us know, and we'll pay attention to addressing those in the future. Today, we'll just briefly go through some indicators as to where we are. Emma Jane will do a quick little questionnaire for you as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about why it seems like the home building market is doing so well. Then we'll talk briefly about why modern business and investing is so difficult, mainly because of the saying that generals tend to fight the last war, and we need to pay a lot more attention to the wars that we're in and the markets and in society that's going to become in the next few years. We'll talk a lot more about a strategic leadership and management system, including something I'm just referring to as a central intelligence system, so that we can understand our world a little better and understand what kind of actions we should take if things change in one direction to another, by figuring out some indicators that are measurable and some that seem like they might be not measurable in any way, but we can probably quantify them in certain ways. I'll move on. Where are we today? The fellow on the left is Dave Portnoy, who's gotten a lot of attention over the past couple months because he's been doing day trading of stocks and just killing it. And he's also been insulting probably anybody who's been in the investment community for decades, including Warren Buffett and Ray Dalio and all kinds of folks, because he just seems to be doing well and just telling them how much better he is than them. He's a great indicator of what's going on in the marketplace, especially the stock market, and how mainly it's being run by a lot of more retail traders rather than the wholesale folks. And a lot of the increases have been happening overnight rather than during the day. The chart on the right is really something that seems to be a theme by many different economists. And it's just a drawing of how low we're going to go down, and then whether we're going to recover fairly fast, and whether we're going to have some relapses and maybe a double hit or a triple hit or a slow increase to the economy in general. Most people are thinking that the economy is going to recover. Sometimes it's going to be slow. Some people think it's real fast. Some people think it's slow. The interesting thing is, I think that the home building market is different than both of them. So how is the home building market doing? It depends on who you ask and how they analyze their data. So I'm going to try and do it consistently, just comparing exactly where we are today compared to where we were a year ago and then maybe a few years earlier. Right now, we seem to be chugging along about 1.3 million permits pretty regularly. This seems to have been happening for several years. It's been the same this year as it was last year. Single family seems to be doing better. It's been steadily up since November. It dropped, as we all knew, in May, but boy, did it recover fast in June, even compared to the previous year. It's a pretty good year. So we'll be curious what everybody else is feeling. Employment is still down a lot. I mean, there's 32 million people who are on continuing unemployment, but that doesn't seem to be hitting the home building, new home market that well, or even existing homes. Growth is still really strong as far as employment over the last month, although it hasn't recovered even close to where it needs to be. Still probably one of the biggest unemployment periods we've ever seen, short of the 1930s. So we're going to just ask you a little question about how you're doing in your market. Emma Jane, take it away.
You guys should all see a poll up on your screens. If you wouldn't mind taking a few seconds to go ahead and answer that. How is your market compared to last year? Better, worse, same, or I just don't know?
Well, while you're answering that, at the risk of prejudicing your answer, a lot of our builder groups and our clients have been experiencing a better year still than they had last year. Some are having record years. Some sales have dropped a bit, but have recovered fairly well. It's rare that any of our clients in any way have dropped off their business noticeably. In fact, it seems like sales are still working pretty well, and it's difficult getting trade partners in some areas and sometimes even materials. And that looks like to be confirmed. It looks like everybody, most people here, 70% almost, are doing better. And if you add the same, we're 90% of the same or better than last year, which is seems to be pretty clear. Thank you. We'll move on to the next. So why is that so good? and I'm sure Chuck might have some opinions, but some things, and the reason I'm saying why this is good is you need to pay attention to these factors, because if these factors change, that might be a leading indicator as to it weakening. Supply's been pretty low compared to household formation and replacement need. We just haven't built a whole lot of homes in this recovery. We may be half the level that it has been historically. And supply has even matched demand. We don't have a whole lot of inventory sitting out there. We haven't built a bunch of specs. Even existing home supply is down. They're not as many homes on the market. So it's really holding prices pretty steady. New home customers as well tend to have a better employment status, and they tend to have better savings. Their jobs are less at risk, or they haven't experienced the unemployment that others have. So they've been doing pretty well. The other thing is that government stimulus and transfers have increased, and they haven't stopped yet. And maybe some of it's stopping soon, but they may be redoing it again. So I pay attention to that. It isn't that the people who are buying homes are receiving a lot of government stimulus or transfers, but if that happens, if that stops, it's going to hurt the rental market, and so rental rates and vacancies will increase, and that may put a little bit of a damper on the housing market, because people will have a choice to stay in their rental community a little longer. The other big thing, especially with COVID, is that home has become a refuge. It has become the workplace for most everybody. Millennials have all kinds of new families. They have jobs where they can, a lot of them can commute via their internet. And so they're completely fine getting a new place for their family where they can handle work as well. Maybe I can make this work. Okay. A few more specifics. The new home market in particular has relied on the top 40% of income generating households. And there really haven't been significant changes in their employment. Some people have had some furloughs, and their income has dropped a little bit, but they haven't been laid off to nearly the people who are in the lower 40% of household income. The other big thing is that interest rates just took a dive. They probably went down a point overall, 100 basis points. They tend to be ranging around 2.5% to 3% right now. Based on 10-year treasuries, the spreads are pretty high. They're about 175 to 250 basis points, and they'll probably stay that way. It'll be, if things went back to where they used to be, where mortgages were priced at 150 basis points for decades over 10-year treasuries, we should be seeing maybe 2% interest rates. We probably won't, because lenders have all kinds of demand, and they have the ability to set those rates a little higher so that they can make more money. Also, the credit criteria have increased. People are requiring higher FICO scores, more stability in income. So there's some pretty good fundamentals to the buying public that still exists out there. They want houses and they can afford them, and mortgage lenders are willing to lend to them. Home has also become way more important. Locations in the suburbs and rural areas, especially away from city cores, millennials who have been just flooding the cities for 10 plus years, they're even starting to want to go out a little farther. They're starting to look in suburbs and even rural areas, because if you can work with Wi-Fi, you can work anywhere in the world. Single family seems to be doing a little better than townhomes. Townhomes a little better than multifamily. Low rise a little better than high rise, which makes sense. People are trying to social distance a lot more. They're trying to spend more time at home. Health is a bigger concern, and I would say security is the unspoken concern. There's a lot of people who, people have bought 8 million guns in the past month or two. There are way more interest in various security features in homes, in communities generally. So I would expect that both of those things are not going away. Health concerns and security concerns are continuing to drive the single family market, and especially renovations. Even if you've got an existing home, people are fixing them up something fierce. Just go to Lowe's and Home Depot any day of the week. So what you need to start thinking about is, why is your market doing well? Or if it isn't doing as well, why isn't it? Is it something to do with your customers, something to do with your product, the way you're promoting to your customers? Are you doing a lot more digitally or not? Is it your general processes? Is once a customer comes to see you, what's your delivery of for your clients? How do you actually fulfill whatever needs they have with your product so that they can get into that house and enjoy it? Or are you having trouble with trade partners just getting the work done? Or is it something else? What might it be? Feel free to type some of those answers into the chat box, and maybe we can talk about it a little bit later. If not, at the very least, think about it. Here are some of the implications we've noticed with our clients and that we're talking to everybody about. Product options. Almost everybody's coming up with a way to create a home office. In addition, a home study, so that the kids can study there and not have to sit in their bedroom all day long. And sounds like it's unclear whether schools are going to open, so there may be a lot more studying at home, a lot more home schools, a lot more things to do there. Security features, as I mentioned, all kinds of different ways that security features are being expressed. The ability to have a garden, sometimes even inside or on a patio, just something small. And all kinds of outdoor features where you've got a swimming pool or a small pool or a patio that can be enclosed and opened. All kinds of different ways to live inside and outside, because that's where people are spending their time. From a process standpoint, boy, if you're not chatting to those immediate customers, and if you're not doing it really fast, you're losing out, because that's where the customers are, especially the millennials. That's what they're used to. You've got to have a way to chat to customers who are interested and do that immediately. And then they have to fit into your sales process, whatever funnel you're using to get people into a sales contract. It has to have a huge amount of digital and online presence, including regular Zooms and phone calls for follow-ups, in addition to your normal on-site demonstration processes, and an ability for your homeowners to select upgrades and options online, or at the very least to preview them, so that it's a lot less time consuming when they actually do come in to do it. So if things are so straightforward and simple, why is it so hard to do most of the time? And there's really two factors: human nature and circumstances. We all get busy, and that seems to be the one that gets in the way the most. It's the most visible. The one that we tend to ignore the most is just human nature. And so I'll talk about that briefly. We tend to have this human mind that works extremely well in many ways, but has some systemic flaws to it. There's some fields that deal with this, including cognitive and behavioral psychology, and then behavioral finance and economics. Of course, none of this applies to people on this call. It just applies to everyone else in the world, because you guys are all rational all the time. I'm positive of that. We do wonderful things, but when it comes to modern decision making, somehow our minds systematically screw things up, especially when it comes to financial and investment decisions, many business decisions, and you can just imagine the political decisions that we screw up because of that. Mainly because of our emotions, but also because of the way we process information and make decisions. It's a way of thinking that's very common. On the surface, it appears rational. We seem to be doing everything rational, and because that's the way it is, and we're really good at making decisions. But in fact, it's not a very good way of thinking logically, and it gets in the way a lot of times. It creates different decision-making and information processing errors that are just inherent in being human. So one of them that we're going to talk about today is just prospect theory or loss aversion. And the simple thing is we dislike losses a lot more than we like equivalent gains. So losing money on a house, if it's a $10,000 loss, is probably 2 to 3 times more painful to us than making the same amount of money on a house. We tend also to be more willing to take risks to avoid losses than we are to try and obtain similar gains. So if we can avoid a loss, we'll take a higher degree of risk just to not have to book that loss. This also expresses itself by we like to take small profits rather than trying to go for bigger profits, because it's way easier to say we got to win. If we got some kind of profit, then that goes into the win column. Here's some examples in the home building world. We tend to hold on to our floor plans, the features included into our houses, the people who work in our houses, whether they're trade partners or employees, the land that we have. We tend to hold on to those projects, especially ways of doing things, the way we actually do things in our business. We tend to hold on to all those far longer than we should, because we don't want to take a loss, whether that's a loss of money or a loss of embarrassment or pride. We don't want to admit that we made a mistake, especially when it comes to people. We just want to keep holding on to them because maybe they're going to get better at it. We want to confirm that we're right. That's a big deal to people who've been right a lot and been successful in their lives. We want to confirm that we're right by giving it more time. And then we just don't want to spend a whole lot of energy or resources on it, because fundamentally human beings want to conserve energy, and we just call that being lazy sometimes. We're excessively lazy at doing things that we should do. And Emma's always had a word for it. We've got to have discipline to do the things you need to do, even though you don't want to. But we usually justify holding on to plans or features or people or land or doing things the way we've always done them for some other reason. There's usually some reason that sounds good to us as to why we're holding on to it and continuing that frustration. It also shows up by taking profits quickly. We tend to value our finished lots or our time very little compared to getting a sale, even at a small profit. So, every week we're really happy of getting lots of sales, even though some of those sales may be at very low gross margins. It happens commonly. And then we're really happy if we sell a lot more than we budgeted or planned. I was just talking to a client yesterday. They were selling eight a month out of this one community. They'd originally planned for 5, and that sounds wonderful. The problem is producing 60% more out of the existing trade base and doing it with a brand new product and not having mistakes or delays is very difficult unless you've figured out how to handle increased volume as part of your regular way of doing business. So we need to be very careful about selling too fast because that can really hurt profitability quickly, as well as quality and customer satisfaction and delays. The solutions to all these things are really simple, and they're very routine to do every single day. And that's exactly why most people will never do them, because they require a routine and a discipline, which people will not do most of the time. So if you do that, you're like unique. And even if you're willing to do that kind of stuff, the fact that it's so simple seems to go against our grain. Somehow we believe that difficult problems must have difficult and complicated solutions. And if they're very simple, we tend to ignore them. So I'm just suggesting don't do that. And here's one way to deal with that from a strategic standpoint, is by having a centralized intelligence system, mainly for the world and your business that we're struggling to understand. And we'll talk about some indicators and ways to deal with that. Here's probably the most important pieces, the next couple slides. It's a system for strategic leadership and management. We've got to have some very key strategic indicators that are derived from your strategic vision for your business, what you want that business to be when it's complete, when it's all grown up. Well, And if you are not running the business, you probably have a department. So what's your strategic vision for your department? Or if you're not even running a department, you're still running your life and your career. So what's your strategic vision for your career in this home building industry? And then we can derive some strategic indicators from that. And they're measurable and quantifiable. Measurable things, I'll talk about that distinction in a bit. But what we're trying to do is assess our progress in an objective way on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis so that we can get back on track if we're not achieving what we wanted, or we can take advantage of opportunities that present themselves ad hoc. And as we identify things that are going on in the world, we might be able to even innovate for new opportunities or to avoid or mitigate potential threats. There's 4 basic systems. Central intelligence, which is gathering the information and deciding what information to gather. Strategic control is controlling what's most important to our business the way it's being run right now. What are the most important things we have to control events to conform to the plan that we have outlined? The 3rd system we need to have is strategic innovation. So this is looking to the future as to what kind of needs of our customers can we satisfy in a way better way that's completely different than the products and services that we're doing right now, or the processes that we're doing right now. And then finally, we have to communicate these control plans, these innovation plans to their key stakeholders, whether those are employees, our trade partners, our customers, our cities and municipalities, our lenders, and our investors. The central intelligence system has these aspects. We're collecting external information, things that are outside of our company, and we're collecting internal information, things that are inside of our company that we can find. And we're trying to figure out the information sources that we're going to go to. So those things might be like online. It might be things like, builder partnership and Chuck. It might be talking to our trade partners, our lenders, might be talking to competitors. Those are all external sources. I think you're all familiar with the internal sources, whether that's our sales information, our marketing information, what's going on operationally with schedule and quality, or financial information. Then we need to set up a way to organize that information, and all that stuff should be done online anymore, on a cloud-based system, so you can access it anywhere you want, anytime you want. And it should be organized in categories and topics that are meaningful to you and the way you want to look at your business. Then within that, once you've decided those kinds of key things, we need to select the best kinds of information within that. Like, we could collect every kind of economic statistic there is, but I'm just suggesting employment and permits are probably good enough. If you want to add 2 or 3 others, feel free. But try and pick maybe 1 to 3 kinds of information in each area, because then you'll focus on it well. You'll figure out how to use it well. Don't try and collect 20, 30 different kinds of information at the beginning. Try and collect just a few, and then decide over time, working with some clients right now, how to create indices of 20 or 30 different indicators, because they're important to different folks, but we can combine those into 3 to 5 indicators that are more indices of what's going on. And then find the best sources of information. The best source is always a primary source. Like if it's permits, go to your city and get those permits, as opposed to going to the governmental websites from the US government, because they're just delayed. And then you have to go gather. And this is so much easier online anymore, and so much easier with the way people can use spreadsheets and databases, a variety of other great tools. So here's just some basic examples. Internal or financial statements and traffic and sales reports that most people are seeing weekly. External are just Googling certain kinds of information. Housing and COVID might be some interesting information. You can get stuff from the government, both local, state, and federal. just start that way. Get from the local jurisdictions first, go to the state for the stuff you missed from there, and then just look at the federal government for the big picture items like interest rates and inflation and things like that. The best source that we tend to ignore most of the time is actually talking to our customers. I really appreciate Guild Quality for sponsoring this webinar. Hold on just a second, I'm going to turn off that phone. But we need to talk a lot more with our customers more directly. Get feedback from them about what they like and what they don't like in our processes, in our products, and exactly what they're going to pay for. And we can go do formal feasibility studies and market studies, but just having a customer information system based on the normal interactions you all have with your customers can go a long way. Let's just get some little examples of economic, social, and political, or the key external pieces that you're looking for from a big picture. So what's going on in the economy, what's going on in society generally, and what's going on politically. And right now, there's all kinds of stuff going on in all three of those areas. So just pick a few, and the way we filter that is what is going to be the impact of this kind of information on our business. If I know, for example, what the permits are and the employment is in the economy, how is that going to affect our customers and our sales? How might that affect it? If I know what's going on socially, how is that going to affect our relationship with our trade partners or our manufacturers? If I know what's going on politically, how might that change the way we have to interact with our customers who maybe have different political persuasions? So for example, these days, if someone walks in with a mask, do you think that they may have one kind of political view versus someone who walks in and just poo-poos masks? Is it possible that you want to interact with them in different ways? I think a lot of people are starting to discover it is helpful to have different scripts for the way different people react, both politically, socially, emotionally, etc. Then the second perspective you want to look at as to what information to collect is what might be the impact on the business we want to create in the future. So you have to have a pretty good idea as to what business you want to be in the future so you can start seeing what information might relate to that. Could that be robotics or artificial intelligence, especially when it comes to talking to customers online? There's all kinds of features right now where you may be talking to what you think is a customer service representative, but it's actually an AI robot that's being run by someone out of Silicon Valley. I'm not saying we should go do that right now. What I'm suggesting is we might want to pay attention to the direction that kind of technology is leading us for the home building industry. And then what kinds of things might change our view of the business we're in? So what kinds of information could you find that would cause you to think you want to be in a different kind of business, or that you might want to change the kind of business that we're in, whether that's production to more customized, or whether that's smaller homes to larger homes, or whether that's doing renovation projects, or whether that's doing rental and mixed use kinds of things. Those are just a few ideas. So what you're going to have are some strategic, once you have that central intelligence information, you're going to create reports so that the main purpose of those reports is so you can compel whatever events or tasks or activities that you and your people are doing to conform to the plan. Whatever it is you can influence and control, you're going to change that so you can accomplish your goals or your plan. The best kinds of reports tend to be dashboard types. They tend to show trends, and they tend to have exceptions highlighted so that you can do something with it. Some examples include sales, profit margins, and cash balances. So, for example, we might want to be tracking online appointments. How many are we getting compared to our plan? And where is that? What levels are they really high, where we might need to add more people? what levels are they too low where we have to go take some action to dig into improving them. Maybe we should have some consistent in-person scripts that are recorded and notice the exceptions and the results to those exceptions. Are people getting more conversions by going off script, or are they getting less? Maybe we want to talk to folks about it and they can see that themselves. From a profit margin standpoint, maybe we wanted to see what are the worst gross margin houses of our top 3 sellers, and then take some sort of action to improve that gross margin. Since we're selling a lot of them, maybe it makes sense to sell them at a good margin, just saying. Cash balance. If our cash balance is less than what we want it to be, or it might be less than what we want it to be within the next 3 months, maybe we should look at deferring the start of the next phase of lots to reduce our cash outlays. Or maybe we should defer some spec starts to reduce our cash outlays, or some other things. Those are just some examples. Strategic innovation is another kind of step that we want to deal with in our strategic and leadership system. And we want to do this about twice a year to every 2 years. And what we're going to do is collect all of the bigger picture information that affects the industry, society, and the world generally, understand that information, and have a meeting with people who think differently than you, who will question you, but whose opinions you respect. They have to be people who are willing to question you and tell you that, well, maybe we should think of something else. They can't be just people who are going to agree with you all the time. And in that meeting, we're going to do 3 things, or that series of meetings. It could be 2 or 3 meetings over a couple months. It could be a 2 or 3 day retreat. It could be whatever you think is appropriate for the kind of information and the setting you want to do that in. You're going to review that information. You're going to discuss it and question it from every different alternative possible, especially the opposites. You're going to think of the pros and cons on a short-term and a long-term basis. And you're going to compare that to your current vision and your current strategies. And then you're either going to say, well, we think that we don't need to change our vision or our strategy, so we'll reaffirm it, or we're going to consider revising it, either our vision or more commonly one of our strategies, to deal with that new information. An example you've all gone through just because you had to is the COVID crisis. Sometime in March, everybody started doing a strategic innovation session, and you probably started doing it almost once a week to say, what do we need to do differently because the world has changed substantially? Well, my suggestion is the world will continue to change, and so have some regular time set to go review it, as well as if something changes substantially, then you're going to go do this exact same process and look at everything again. So you can be prepared to react swiftly. And finally, you're going to go talk to your stakeholders about it. You're going to talk to all those customers and employees and trade partners and lenders, investors and city folks and anyone you talk to. You're going to have some formal meetings and formal communications, whether they're written or email. You're going to have regular and special meetings that you just normally have, and you'll talk about some of these things. You'll just see people on a phone call or out in the job site. You're going to find multiple ways to talk to people. Awards and recognitions are a wonderful way to talk about your future vision for the company or changes in strategies. Any kind of social or business event is a great way to go talk to all kinds of other people just in the community at large, but you never know where there might be city officials or trade partners or anyone else. So it's basically anytime you can, you're going to be communicating about what you need to do to control your business the way it is and what you need to do to innovate your business for the way it should become. I talked about measuring versus quantifying. What we do is we measure tangible things. It's very objective. Anything we can measure, you can count it, you can put a ruler to it, a stopwatch, a chemical test, anything that you can do to measure something that's a tangible quantity. That's what we call measuring. Usually it's financial or time-based, or it can be any kind of quality measure as well. That's what we want to consider measuring. But there's also all kinds of intangible things that, and we'll talk about that in a second. I forgot this slide that I put in. So here's some examples of tangibles. New homes. What's going on with supply of new homes versus the demand? What's going on with price discounting, which is going to tell us what's going on with supply and demand, both our customers, both our competitors, and ourselves. What's going on with existing supply and demand? That's very easy to find out. And the home price changes, especially for your target price ranges. We can measure what's going on with government transfer payments and stimulus. And what I'm going to suggest in a little while, in a few months, we want to look at government tax rates and regulations, which might change here in November or January. Look at what's going on in the mortgage market. How many are past due? What are the percentages past due? What's in default and foreclosure? Because we've been very lucky. There's been a lot of forbearances that have occurred, and past due payments have increased, probably 8-9 times from where they were a few months ago. But because they aren't being foreclosed on, we're not seeing any of that inventory hit the market. Then also pay attention to qualification terms and interest rates, which we talked about earlier. Then use that tangible information to figure out how to plan. If our sales backlog and closings increase 10% or decrease 10% from our plan, what are we going to do? What action plans are we going to take? Whether it's in non-personnel operating expenses, what point do we start dealing with personnel operating expenses? What do we do with trade partners and suppliers? Value engineering? Do we defer some land investments or deposits? Or do we open it up and start buying more? And especially, how should we be understanding our customer? That is just the weakest point that I notice over and over, that we really don't understand our customer, mainly because sales are doing so well. Then finally, lenders and investors, we're going to have to go talk with them at some point about something. So how do we want to plan to do that if something changes financially or in any of our other tangible metrics? Now, when we talk about intangible things, these are subjective, they're judgmental, they usually deal with emotions and feelings. We're always talking about we want a good customer experience or a great customer experience. So what does that mean? It means that customers love us, that they're loyal to us, that they trust us. Notice all of those are emotional terms, that they're satisfied with us, or that employees and trade partners are satisfied with us. All emotional measures. Those are the most intangible things we can get. Well, we can actually start quantifying those things and then seeing if they're getting better or worse. It's really very easy to do. Create some rating scores, with worst being, for example, -5. It could be -10, -3, whatever you want, and +5 being the best, and then the middle, which is kind of so-so, being at 0. And you have to define what those terms are. You can't just have worst, best, and middle, because everybody has a different opinion as to what that means. So for each key thing, like to say it's customer loyalty, you want to, or employee loyalty in this case, employee satisfaction, being a builder of choice as far as employees. The worst score might be that employees are frustrated, they're confused, they're down, they're not feeling happy about things, they're unproductive, maybe turnover is even high. Best one is that employees are satisfied, they're engaged, they're talking to you, they're motivated to do work, they're highly productive, they're coming up with great new ideas to how to deal with customers and solve problems. In the middle, maybe it's just people show up and do what they need to do. Maybe that's the middle. So quantify what those ratings should be, and then go have a few people on your team go estimate, where are we on these things, and then talk about it where you guys are different by more than one rating level. Why does one person rate it differently than another one? Because if these are some of the most useful things ever, is to start quantifying those intangible things that are important to your strategic vision. Here's some more examples for just strategic control. If you want to become a builder of choice for trade partners, which makes an awful lot of sense if you're having trouble getting your houses done on quality, on time. The best ones might be that everybody's cooperating throughout the trade base, that they have candid conversations with each other and with your team. And the worst one might be nobody talks to anybody, they're all alienated, they all blame somebody else, and especially the builder. Or say you want to really improve your processes because you want to perform excellently and you want to get ready for the digital age. So the best situation would be is that all of our company activities are documented, accessible to everyone. Some are being improved on a regular basis. The worst might be we react to everything. People are overworked and nothing stays fixed. People are frustrated constantly. So your homework is to figure out whether for these two items, whether it's professional service or customer experience, we're kind of intangible, or come up with some other intangible items that are important to you and your business, and come up with what's best and what's worst and what's in the middle, and then start tracking that. And I'll bet you'll start coming up with some ideas as to what to do to improve that over time if you're tracking that. Here's some other intangibles that are more social and political. It's really what's going on in our society these days because it makes it feel like it's a big struggle. I think you can use this for strategic control, but especially for innovating where your business should be if some of these things come to pass. Especially, let's look at it this way. What if Republicans control the White House, the Senate, and the House? What kind of good things might happen for your customers, for your trade partners, for your financial situation, for your cities? What kind of bad things might happen if the Republicans control all those things? Then flip it around. What happens if the Democrats control the White House, the Senate, and the House? What might happen to your tax rates? What might happen to mortgage terms and qualifications? What might happen to the trade base? Just think it through. We are thinking of having some brainstorming sessions to talk about strategic innovation, where we would brainstorm what are some potential things that might happen in the first session. And in the second session, we'll talk about some ways you could actually accomplish changing your business to conform to that, to take advantage of those things. If you're interested in that session, please let us know. The other thing that we can do with these intangible measures, especially for customers, you can start evaluating how are people thinking based on what they say or based on how they behave. What's going on with savings rates? And we don't even have to have specific information. Does it seem like people are talking about saving more or saving less? What kind of things are they investing in? Does it seem like they're investing more in stocks or more worried about it? Or maybe they are interested in real estate. And who knows? What other things are they buying too? Are they buying more trips or are they buying more experiences at home? What are they producing in their work? What kind of tangible, productive things are they doing in their work? What kinds of frustrating things are bothering them in their work, especially from at home? If they're doing any of those things from at home and it's a frustration, that's clearly an opportunity to innovate your product or your process. Think about what business you really are in. What needs of customers really are you filling? What might be changing and what are you doing about those changes? This requires thinking outside of the box to figure out how the business of home building might transform so that we aren't turning out to be a Kodak when everything is a digital picture online. We want to be careful. We want to derive all of these metrics, these intangible metrics, these tangible metrics from what your strategic vision is. And so you have to have one. It's best to write it down, who and what you will become when your company, your department, or your career is complete. That's what you're defining. What line of business, locations, products, services? What are some clear, tangible measures? People often think in terms of size. We would encourage you to think in terms of profitability as well. Reputation is always important to people. Where you are in the marketplace, and what kind of customers you're using, where you are competitively. Do you compete on price or in quality, on service, on something else? What kind of senses or emotions do you want people to experience when they work with your business? Things you and anyone else can see or feel or hear, or even taste it or smell it. What does it feel like dealing with us? And then when do you think this business is going to be complete? At what point? And you don't have to say this is it forever. This is just your strategic vision that you're going to plan your entire company towards right now. I hear so many times people say, well, we'll be whatever the world allows us to be, whatever the universe lets us be. That's not specific. That's not helpful. What I would suggest, if you're having trouble with that, just take wherever you are right now, multiply times 2 to times 10, and just start from there. Just say, if you've been growing rapidly, then multiply times 2. If you've been fairly stable, then multiply times 5 to 10. That will give you the biggest you're probably going to be that you should start aiming towards structuring your company all towards. Especially add in there, what do you want to be distinctive or unique about your company, about you, about your department, the way you do things? Is it specific kinds of products, the way you do your marketing, the way you're going to operate, the way employees are going to behave or look or sound or feel? How does the distinctive from everyone else out there? And one I'm going to suggest to you is that all should be just digitized. This strategic vision should be only 1 to 2 pages, and it has to result in you being committed to achieving it. That's your ultimate test as to whether the strategic vision is working, is if you feel committed and motivated to achieving this vision. You got to define what business you're in, because that defines what you pay attention to. Are you in the business of building houses? Or maybe something else. Maybe it's connecting those who work on or in homes to those who live and work and play in them somehow. Maybe it's something else that's broader. And then what should you be planning for and doing right now? And my biggest suggestion is performance improvement and excellence in every area, which is really defining effective and efficient ways of doing things. That should be one of the most important things that every builder and business work on right now, because it's so lacking constantly. Again, I mentioned everything. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say within 5 to 10 years, if you are not highly digitized in almost every single one of these areas, you will be out of business. You must have documented processes, the way you do things, so that you can digitize things. You can't just go buy some software application and think that that's going to substitute for all the processes you do. It works way better to do it the other way around. Your customer processes, everybody is learning to market and sell online right now. That was a trend before COVID. It became accelerated during COVID, and we're going to come out of it even at a greater level of acceleration. Same thing with trade partners and manufacturers. Everything to do with offices, to the extent we have offices in the future, or whether people just have home offices that they connect through the cloud to everything else that's going on in our company. 90% of our production processes can be handled digitally as well. And that last 10%, we're going to watch to see what kind of things might happen on site that's even more digital and robotic and artificial intelligence involved. So just think about what you're doing. From some of the ideas in this webinar, what are you doing to collect the information you need, evaluate it so you can control your strategies well, so that you can innovate well, and you can communicate to your stakeholders in the way they want to be communicated with. You got to become disciplined and digitized. As a disciplined builder, it's got to be a routine all the time, improving one thing at a time. That's what we're doing with our clients. in our weekly meetings is how can we improve something one thing at a time? Just 2 to 4 hours a week. If you can spend just 10% of your time, if all your employees can spend 10% of their time on improvement, you will be a rocket ship in just a month or two. You got to do it with you first. And everyone who works with you, you'll probably be able to improve at least 4 times within 3 years if you do these kinds of things. And even after a few weeks, you'd be surprised at what doing these monthly kind of coaching and business improvement efforts generate. You got to already have the habit. You can't just put it online. You have to have a habit of discipline and the processes that can be digitized. Tell us what's important to you, financially, strategically, etc. Anything else, so that we can talk about this as we keep going along each month. Here's some of the next steps. Next month, we've got HBU seminars. Emma Jane will talk about that a little bit more. We do our project-based consulting. There's something that you need to figure out just right away. We need to get it whipped right now. We can do that within just a few weeks normally. And then if you want to create the discipline of improvement, our weekly improvement coaching is probably one of the best ways to do it. And it's very cost effective from all the clients who've been experiencing it. I'll turn it over to Emma Jane, and she can tell us a little bit of some of the questions that are out there.
All right, so far we don't have any questions, but we are open to questions. I know Jim covered a lot of great topics today. So go ahead and click on that Q&A button on the bottom and ask your questions. While we're waiting for questions to come through, I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of what we're here to do to help you. Go ahead and switch to the next slide if you wouldn't mind, Jim. So I wanted to share with you who our consulting team is. We've got Ed Hauk, and you can see on here what our different specialties are, and you can use those one-on-one coaching packages that Jim was talking about from any one of our consultants. And those are really great services to be able to help you pinpoint what you need to be working on and keep you on track through that process, as well as the consulting services. Go ahead to the next slide. A list of our services include, of course, our rebates through builder partnerships. So if you are submitting rebates, we offer a great program for you. You can meet with Marla or some of the rest of the team to go through and see how you can maximize your rebates. As we discussed, we have our consulting services. We have our online training, which is our live courses. They're starting up on August 4th with production management, a negotiation seminar, and then also our Home Building 101 class. It's a brand new class. It's going to be geared towards those that are brand new to the home building industry and need to learn a little bit about how a home building business works, going through each of the departments and how to be able to communicate and work together to be an effective company. We obviously have our data transfers, which are great to help the rebate process with Mark Systems and Cova. If you are doing rebates and are not familiar with our data transfer, make sure you get with your service person, and she'll help you with that. Our surveys are also available. The Builder of Choice survey, which Jim spoke about during the seminar as well. That's a great product to be able to figure out how you are seen from the eyes of your trades. And then we also have our builder groups, which is basically a support system. I know a lot of our builder groups have been communicating with each other throughout this COVID crisis and really have been leaning on each other to make sure that they are doing best practices and figuring out how to navigate through the unknown. Next slide, please.
Trying Emma Jane.
This is a list of all of our manufacturers, and you can see this on our website as well. And this, if you're using any one of these organizations, you should be able to get your rebates taken care of, and we can work with you on that. As I said, here's a list of our classes that are starting in August. Make sure you sign up for them on builderpartnerships.com/events. And then our webinars are coming up pretty quickly here. So we have July 29th, NISIS is going to be presenting on pre-treatment for termites and what those options are. I actually got a preview of his presentation. He's got a lot of great information and a lot of good things that you probably may or may not already know about. August 5th, we're pulling Ross Robbins back out to come talk to us about what makes a salesperson great and not so great. So you want to make sure to join us for that one on August 5th. And our sponsor, Guild Quality Today, is going to be hosting their own webinar on August 12th. So be sure to join us for that one to learn a little bit more about what Guild Quality does and how you can use that to improve your organization. And you can get to all of our webinars by going to builderpartnerships.com/events/hashtag webinars. And be sure to contact us for anything that we can do to help you. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week. It looks like there's no questions today, so it looks like Jim did a great job of filling you all up in with all that great information. We look forward to seeing you next week at Webinar Wednesday. Have a great week, you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
See you guys later.